What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Triple H podcast, Happy Hour Hoops. And Happy New Year to everyone. Before we get into the basketball talk today, it wouldn't be right if we didn't talk about what's going on in the sports community as a whole. Obviously, I'm sure by now everyone knows the news about Damar Hamlin. And it just, on behalf of Trainwreck Sports, Happy Hour Hoops, the three of us, it just felt right if we start today's episode and the new year just kind of giving out some prayers and thoughts to not only Damar himself, his family, Bills Mafia, everyone in the city of Buffalo, everyone in the NFL community, um, people that help with his fundraiser that has been going crazy, and the donations are awesome to see. I think on behalf of Happy Hour Hoops, it is, although it's horrible circumstances, it's great that you can see everyone in not only the NFL community, but the sports community as a whole kind of come together and support him and his family at this time. So, yeah, we just didn't feel right getting into things without kind of giving a shout out to him and hoping for the best. Um, you guys have anything to add to that before we get into some hoops?
I just want to say that first off, prayers to Hamlin and everything. Hope he's recovering. We've seen some good news a little bit so far today, which is good that he's improving. But it was something surreal that we've never seen happen before, right? In sports, where at the end of the day, it's a game. We love it. We love sports. We love rooting for athletes or teams. But at the end of the day, it's a game. And I just want to say that that was kind of almost like an awakening moment for me. And I think everyone else, where everything stopped. No one cared about the game anymore. You could tell the players, the coaches, all they cared about was Hamlin. I think was handled very well by both coaches, both staffs. And that at the end of the day, it's a game, and these are real human beings. These are real human beings with families, and that have their health in mind, and it's just a game. And I think sometimes we have to take a step back and realize that it really is just a game, and that the first priority always is the health and safety of everyone involved. So I think it was handled well, and wish him the best. He has been doing a little bit better, is what I've seen from reports lately. So just hoping that that can improve.
Absolutely.
Like you said, the reports have been coming in, and those are positive signs. Just wish the best for the family and everything else. I think it really is. It's really taught us, given us a moment as one of the probably the worst things we'll all probably watch live, see live in our lives. And I'm sure that that's shared by many people across the country that were watching, and anything else that has happened in the last couple of days. But really has also created a great moment to share like how great humanity can be, and just like you said, the donations coming in. I believe the goal was 2,500 going into this holiday season, and the last I checked, it was up over $5.5 million. And with those signs of improvement and everything else, I'm just really looking forward to the moment where we get to hear Damar Hamlin's reaction to that kind of impact that he has made and will be able to make in the Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and I'm sure all sorts of communities around the country and around the world, because whether Damar knows it or not, he is now beloved and going to be one of the most famous human beings on the planet when he pulls this through. And he clearly, from everything we've heard the last couple of days, he's an amazing person with an amazing spirit of philanthropy and wants to give back. And it's just that's the one silver lining has been seeing how, like you said, the world stopped and everybody kind of rallied around this young man who has so much going for him in his life, and just hope that we keep getting good news the next couple of days.
Yeah, that's it. It's just crazy, and it kind of does show how much bigger sports are in general than just the games that we watch, or the bets that we place, or the box scores. I think this is a good reason, although it's tough to look at this situation positive at all. And that obviously I'm not saying that this is an entirely positive situation, but it is cool at the end of the day where you can have all of these sports fans. It doesn't matter if you're a football fan, like everyone from all different directions are kind of coming together and realizing the bigger picture at large. And like Jake just mentioned, like we're all, everyone's kind of in unity to donate to his charity, to, sending prayers to him and his family, doing everything we can to, to ensure that he's back on his feet. And when he is, he's blessed for that reason. So yeah, it's great. We hope we get some more positive news tomorrow. And just we'll continue to pray for his family and teammates and everyone involved in the situation. But and by the way, Jake has no video today. If you guys were watching on YouTube and wondering, but he'll be back for next episode, no problem.
Yes,
and
blame
he's
AT&T
still with us.
internet, Wi-Fi technicians, whatever their deal is. I swear, bro. I was talking to a friend the other day. I'm like, I'm just gonna change my job to a Wi-Fi technician because clearly they need some help here. Maybe get some advice. I don't know. So next week, hopefully, my beautiful face in my brand new apartment will be.
Yes.
We'll see it here.
Yeah, this episode is really just a tease. So next episode, you guys have to tune in to see Jake's new place, new backdrop and everything. But new year, guys. NBA hasn't gone anywhere. News and notes to get into. It's been a while. It's been just over 2 weeks since we've been on, I believe, maybe even a little longer than that. So a lot has happened. We were just talking about it before we got on, how crazy some of these performances by individuals has been the last couple of weeks. But before we get to those, some housekeeping stuff here. The bad news, we got some injuries around the league. Zion, he's going to be out at least another 3 weeks with the hamstring strain. Kelly Oubre, a guy who we talked about the last time we were on here, how he's been kind of a bright spot and kind of flying under the radar, averaging 20 points per game. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with a torn ligament in his hand, and Devin Booker will be out a few more weeks with that groin strain as well. This isn't injury news, but a team we talked about with some drama towards the beginning of the season, and kind of seems like the last few years, but the Atlanta Hawks coach, Nate McMillan, there's some rumors that he may resign from this coaching job. Obviously, him and Trey, or him and management, or both, just aren't seeing eye to eye at the moment. I think people had maybe some bigger expectations for this backcourt duo and the Atlanta Hawks in general this year. Not that they're, doing super poorly or anything, but obviously something going on in that organization. So yeah, I mean, we'll see with that. I feel like it's just kind of been the same thing with the Atlanta Hawks for the last couple of years. Like, they have moments and flashes, and Trey will look good, and that.
Quick question for you both.
Yeah.
Quick question for you both here. If you had to put odds on it, what were the odds that you would put that Trey Young is in an Atlanta Hawks uniform next year?
Ooh. I mean, here's the thing, right? He would be their best trade piece if they were to, go a completely different direction. They've lost 4 straight. You've had the disagreements with management or whatnot, and I didn't expect the Hawks to play like this. I didn't really think they were a team. I thought they were going to be not comfortably in the playoffs in the East, but one of the better teams, and maybe top half. And right now they're fighting for a spot in the play-in. Odds are tough because Trey Young is still, I guess, their franchise piece, and there's a lot of other guys I think they could move before him. So I would say maybe 4-1, plus 400, but maybe plus 500. And I'm a gambling man, Jake. I wouldn't hate a little sprinkle on that, because we've seen rumors already that there are certain teams that would maybe be interested in getting. What the package would be, I don't know, but I could see the Hawks kind of cleaning up. And even if they trade Trey Young, and they got another point guard with DeJounte Murray, who right now is playing the 2, he could just slide right in and be their point guard. So I don't think the odds are crazy. I still think it's unlikely Trey Young moves. I think they'd move a lot more other pieces before him, change up management, whatever. But it's not, impossible right now, where maybe a year ago we'd be like, the Hawks would never get rid of Trey Young. Now it seems a little more likely than before.
Yeah, I tend to be in agreement with you, Steve. I figured last year, especially like 2 years ago,
yeah,
with that crazy run, where they just seemed like they couldn't lose in the playoffs there. Trey had his moment in MSG. and kind of all that hype around the Atlanta Hawks, you wouldn't even think that we'd be talking about this right now.
Right.
But there was a decline in the playoffs for the whole team last year, including Trey, big time with Trey. You know, the defensive liability thing just killed them in the playoffs when he couldn't defend anyone in the Miami Heat. And now you have the drama with head coach Nate McMillan this year, and where I don't think that they would choose Coach McMillan over Trey, which I think McMillan's done a pretty good job since he took over in Atlanta. But obviously there's just something that's not working between players and coach. So I think I'd still be a little surprised if they moved on from Trey, just because I honestly still think if the way they drafted him hadn't gone down, he might have already been traded by now. But it might be a thing where they could have had Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
That's one thing, too. Everyone who used to call this trade a win-win for both sides, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. Stop it. It's a fleece. I'm done with this. Trae Young's a great player. He's not even close to Luka Doncic.
I mean, he's not a top. I don't think he's even a top 10 player in the NBA right now.
No, I wouldn't say top 10, but if
there wasn't a
stop there and they took Trae Young, you'd say that's a good pick, right?
Yeah.
It's a guy who's gotten you some playoff success before. He can average high 20s per game. He's been averaging high at almost 10 assists per game a few seasons. Like, he's a great player. He can make a big impact. He could be a guy who could drop 40 a night, but he's not Luka Doncic.
Yeah. I think that's the reason they may have trouble parting with him, just because they're stubborn. They might be stubborn enough where they're like, we still believe that trade was a win-win. We have our guy.
They
don't want to
admit defeat.
The Hawks, though. You both have talked about the Hawks wanting to trade him. What if he goes in the offseason and is like, get me the fuck out of here, get me somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like that's where the McMillan firing thing's coming from, is more like, we need to appease Trey because he's going to ask out. And what do we do with that situation? Because he seems like a guy who would go nuclear with it. Like, right now, it seems like Trey will do whatever he wants to get what he needs if it comes to that situation with what he's like kind of trying to strong arm right now. So I don't know. That's my thing, is he's going to be the one to ask out. There's always one guy that you don't expect for him to happen that comes up every year. Seems like he's my leading candidate, at least. If I like your plus 400, 25% chance, I feel like that's like perfect. Like exactly what I was thinking in line with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the future for Trey, the future for the Atlanta Hawks, certainly interesting. Will be interesting to watch it and follow this, because you have to assume some moves made at the deadline for this team, regardless if it's Trey or not. I mean, they're sitting at 9 in the East right now, 17-20, 3 games below 500. The trade deadline's coming up closer than we think. I believe it's February 9th this year.
Cool.
So, about a month away from about a month away from the deadline. I mean, we how many years in a row have we heard John Collins is getting moved?
No. I feel like John Collins there's a rumor for John Collins every day.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
So maybe this is finally the year they move him and try to improve things, or like you said, maybe they just ride this out and we see a frustrated Trae Young towards the end of the season, a firing of Nate McMillan. Who knows? Something will happen with Atlanta, so keep your eyes on that. Enough of the bad news, though, guys. There's just been individuals that have been going bonkers in the NBA lately, all across the league. It seems after the first few months of the season and everyone started to get acclimated. I don't know if it's teams stop playing defense or these guys are just out of their mind and want to make this and continue to have the best MVP race in NBA history, because we have the Luka Doncic performance on December 27th. I guess we can just go in chronological order here. It started with Luka, right?
And you could even argue Jokic before him, where
that's
he had
what I was going to say, yeah.
47, 20, and 6.
Embiid's had a few monster games this year. Before that, obviously, I think that 48-point game, 20 rebound type game. Yeah, and Jokic continues to do his thing and get no love for it, but that's just what we expect out in Denver with Jokic. And then Luka, just a few days after Christmas, he puts up one of the best performances in NBA history: 60 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists. I mean, Steve, you must have been just losing your mind
It
watching
was.
Luka during this one.
It was one of the craziest games because, as you know, with the storm in Buffalo, right, the blizzard in Buffalo, I went home, which is about an hour and a half from Buffalo, and I was there and kind of almost trapped at home because I couldn't get back into the city of Buffalo. So that was the last day before I went back to Buffalo. I was like, oh, I'll just pack up my things and just put on the Mavs Knicks game, and it turned into me just. I couldn't stop watching that, Donnie. That was one of the most impressive performances I've seen. Not only did he have 60, 21, and 10, which in itself is just a ridiculous stat line, first time in NBA history of a 60, 20, 10 triple-double, but the fact that they were down 9 with 33 seconds to go, first time in NBA history, a team down 9 wins the game. He has the missed free throw where he had to miss the free throw, gets his own rebound to put it in. He had the and one on another, put back shot to even get them in that position. And then he was the one who assisted the pass on the inbounds to Dinwiddie that even got them within a possession. It was a wild, wild game. Luka played out of his mind. And the craziest part of how good Luka has been on this stretch, I was telling you before we started this, last 7 games, he's averaging 49, 12, and 10. Those numbers don't make sense. That's not something anyone should be averaging over a week of games, not even 7 games. But not only that, the Mavs have been winning. 8-1 in their last 9 since Christian Wood officially became a starter, which I have to give Christian Wood some love too, because the Mavs team has completely changed since he's been a starter, like a regular starter, and they set a starter going forward in the lineup. Everything's changed for the Mavs because now Christian
all year long.
He's been great. And what was the biggest reason he was coming off the bench was he was a defensive liability. Since he's became a regular starter, he's averaging 2.8 blocks a game. He's playing great defense. He's averaging basically a double-double. He's been very good from outside the arc. So Luka, yes, he's been going nuts, but it's really this Mavs team as a whole that's improved so much. So obviously I was going nuts on that game against the Knicks. I told Jake with this, I'm like, as much of a Luka fanboy as I have been, I have to at this point just claim the Mavs because I've been watching every Mavs game at this point. They're must-watch television now with the way Luka's been playing, and it's been a great sight to see. Obviously, Wood has helped a lot too, but Luka's playing like not just an MVP type player, but like one of the best stretches of all time that we've seen right now. And the craziest part about it is he's still struggling with his 3-point shot.
Yeah.
That's the craziest part, is he's still not playing at his full potential right now. Whereas his 3-point shot's struggling a little bit. He's turned over the ball a little more than he probably should. But his defense has improved this year. It feels like he's getting multiple steals every night now. And Luka's now gotten to the point where it does not matter what the defense is. Before, he would always pass out of the double team. He does not care anymore. And I'm loving every bit of it, Donnie, as you can tell. It's been a very, very fun stretch for the Luka Doncic fanboy in me, because he's been playing like the best player in the NBA, and we're seeing that now where he is the MVP favorite, I believe, at plus 250.
Yeah, no, Luka, no doubt, is the favorite in that category right now. Just the fact that this Mavs team in general is on a 7-game win streak right now. Like, think about the way we were watching and talking about them at the beginning of the year. It was like no one can do anything except for Luka. It's amazing what can happen for a team like that and a player like that when the guys around him start knocking down their shots. And that's, as far as the winning recipe, I know Luka's kind of taken it to another level, but that's kind of been the difference. Like I remember a few shows ago we were talking about their struggles were because guys like Hardaway, Reggie Bullock, Dinwiddie, they were all shooting the ball so poorly. That they move that 3-point percentage up just a little bit, and it makes a world of a difference for Luka and the Mavs. Jake, just a few days later, your guy the other night, Donovan Mitchell, January 2nd, 71 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists. He didn't get the triple-double, but he had 11 more points. And the craziest thing about both these games is, we talked about it with Luka already, but the comeback win in both of them. Like it looked
Yeah.
like the Cavs were out of this game for a little bit towards the end. Donovan Mitchell imposes his will more than anyone we've ever seen probably since Devin Booker's 70-point game against the Celtics, but he lost. He lost in that contest. And yeah, we have Mitchell and Luka having these games and they come out of nowhere and not only put up these insane stat lines, but will their team to victory. Jake, what do you think of your guy Donovan Mitchell here?
Yeah, Luka and Mitchell needed every single point. Like
Yeah.
that's the crazy thing. Like they were, but to just talk about Mitchell in general, like the crazy thing is he only had 6 points after the first quarter too. Like he had overtime to help him, obviously. But imagine if he hits a couple more of those. Like he was that close away. I don't remember the guy's name, the announcer who was in the building. Did you guys hear about this? That the radio announcer for the Bulls was the Raptors TV announcer when Kobe scored 81. So he
Really?
is now called 81 and 71, and he told Mitchell that after the game. Mitchell said, "So it was you then." And that's like,
Holy shit.
just imagine being that guy, just being
That's
Crazy.
a crazy coincidence.
It's so wild.
I mean, good for that guy. You get to watch two of the greatest individual performances in NBA history. And the craziest thing with Mitchell too, Jake, I don't know if you saw this stat. Not only did he have 71 points, which in itself is ridiculous, he was responsible for 99 points for the Cavs there. It was the second most in NBA history after, guess who, Wilt Chamberlain, when he had 104 in his 100-point game. Second most. Donovan Mitchell.
It was the most, I believe, the highest assist and rebound total along with the highest scoring game. Like the most, like with the amount that he scored up, I think above 60 or like above like 65 or something, because obviously Luka had the 20, whatever. It was like I can't remember what it was.
It was the highest assist, I'm pretty sure, because I know Wilt had like 30-something rebounds in his game when he dominated. But it was also, I believe, the highest percentage in NBA history of points responsible for of the team's total points, where Donovan Mitchell, well, he also, I think he sat for 3 minutes the entire game. Yeah. He played 50-something minutes. So I mean, talk about a guy who's just like in the zone. He didn't even need to come out of the game.
So guys, here's what I was thinking about after like the Mitchell performance and everything. Like obviously it was amazing. Like I didn't watch the game live, but I watched the highlights after, and just a guy fully in command of his game, like knows every single spot, has a plan A, B, C, D, E for everything right now. But I guess my biggest question is, did we ever really expect Donovan Mitchell to be like look as good as he did? Like,
no,
I don't know if I ever expect him to play a complete game like that with no Garland, with no Mobley. Like they have so many options, offensive weapons out right now, and I just didn't think he had that in him.
Not to mention, I think Karis LeVert was like 1 of 13 from the floor that game. So he didn't even have that help stepping in for Garland. What's crazy, too, about it, Jake, and I think we talked about this before. We were never huge Donovan Mitchell guys. Obviously, you were excited when they traded for him. But I remember talking about it even last year. I called him one of the more overrated players in basketball. We were saying, oh, he's not that great. And look what's happened since he's left Utah and he's gone to Cleveland. Not only has he shut up all the Donovan Mitchell haters, but he's made a lot of them believers, to where everyone's kind of starting to backpedal, where Utah might have been the issue, not Donovan Mitchell, because we're looking at what he's doing with a little bit more talent around him, or I guess a better, balanced team around him. And he's turning into a pure superstar. And I don't really think you can argue that anymore.
Yeah, as two guards in the league right now, it feels like it's Booker, Mitchell, and then like a gaping hole. And maybe I'm forgetting like a couple people in there, but that's
Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen, I count him as a wing. I don't count him as a two guard, exactly.
Yeah, he's not a traditional two. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
And I mean, Mitchell, I would say if you're going to group those three guys, I think Mitchell is head and shoulders above both those guys right now. I mean, if we're
right now,
and they're
which is crazy.
In 15 minutes as we record here on this Wednesday night, Booker and Mitchell. So I guess we're going to see a lot of those guys going at each other. But
Booker's out.
Yeah.
Oh,
so Mitchell.
Booker's out for like 4 weeks, I think, 3-4 weeks, which is tough. But
the injuries are crazy around the league with some of the big impact ones, but that feels like the biggest to me. Like
I agree.
Then we're talking about
especially
Zion,
how poorly they're playing.
AD.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole lot. Did you see the report yesterday too? Robert Sarver apparently is going to remain in charge of transactions above a certain dollar amount, even though the new ownership's coming in. So it doesn't sound like his influence is very much going away. We don't know what
Really?
that dollar amount is, but I feel like it's like $5 or something.
Yeah, I was
like
gonna
that.
say like a couple bucks.
Like a Happy Meal. So it just feels
Jeez.
like when you hear something like that and know that they're going through an ownership change, and then on top of everything else, there's a lot going on in Phoenix right now off the court. that I
Yeah.
think
3-game
has to
losing
work out.
streak, 4-6 in their last 10.
They have,
Not looking good
And-
for Phoenix.
unlike I think previous years when Booker's out, they've had certain guys step up. There really hasn't been anyone. Mikal Bridges has tried, but he doesn't want. He's the type of player who can't really handle that go-to scorer role, right? He's a
No,
great teammate to have. He's a great teammate to have. A great, piece that you want to add to a championship type team. But he's not the guy you want to run your offense through. And Chris Paul's lost a step. You were talking about it before, Dunny, before this year started. He's lost a step. Their depth isn't as what it used to be. And I know it's a meme at this point, but the Suns don't like DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, no, they don't.
They don't like DeAndre. It's a tough
He doesn't like the
situation to
Suns.
be in. Right, exactly. Yeah, well, at least the feeling's mutual, right? But it's a tough situation to be in. But if we're going back to the Mitchell versus Booker comparison, which I didn't think we'd ever have this conversation at the start of this year, which is crazy that we are. If you take the games they were healthy this year, Mitchell's been a better player.
Oh, yeah. By a wide margin, in my opinion. And the thing, I'm glad we came back to Mitchell here, because what I wanted to say is just think about the narrative this summer before that Cavs trade happened. I mean, the way he went out in Utah and the way that ended in that era of the Utah Jazz ended, people were talking about Mitchell like he couldn't be a first option on a playoff team. They were like,
People
well,
would
this
say-
clearly doesn't work. Like, he's a number 2 and that's
He
it.
could
And
be a 2, was the narrative. He could be a 2.
yeah. And that's kind of where I was starting to lean. I didn't necessarily believe that. I was like, or at least he's going to a new team. One, I didn't think it would develop this quickly with the Cavs, squad as a whole. And two, I didn't think he had 71 points in him. I didn't think he was that good of a scorer. I knew he could get buckets and get them quickly. And, he shoots the volume 3. He's a very good 3-point shooter. But, 71, man, that is – and he's regardless of how the rest of his career goes, I'm sure he'll have success, because look at what he's done this season and with his new team.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless of any of that and whatever he does for the rest of his career, he's immortalized himself scoring 71 points.
Oh, absolutely.
Only 5 now? He's the 5th player to ever do that, 5th or 6th player. I just looked it up. It's him, Wilt Chamberlain, Kobe Bryant, David Thompson, David Robinson, and Elgin Baylor, and Devin Booker, and that's it.
Yeah. That's a short list with a lot of Hall of Famers. So, yeah, it's good company to be in.
It's just it's insane, just the turn he took from this summer to where we're at
Agreed.
right now.
And this is a nice little segue for us to get into some other stuff here, is that we're talking playoff-wise with Mitchell and the Cavs in general. I still need to see that happen. 71 against the Bulls in a regular season game, awesome. Can't take anything away from it. Mitchell is going to be judged on what he can do against the Bucks, Celtics, and now the Sixers, and the number 2 team in the East, second best record in the NBA, the main character of Happy Hour Hoops, the Brooklyn Nets. They're back, baby. We start out 2023 just like we came into 2022. Brooklyn Nets, story of the league.
12 straight wins. 12 straight wins.
Nuts.
I don't know what happened. They figured it out. Kevin Durant right now is shooting 77%, I think, from mid-range. That shouldn't be right. That should be a fake statistic. Ben Simmons looks like he's checked in a little bit to this team, the role they're having him play.
Yep.
I know Dunny hates hearing this, and especially because now they're only, I believe, half a game back of the Boston Celtics. And if you asked us maybe a month ago the state of both teams, we would have laughed about comparing them right now. Half game back, the Celtics have kind of been slipping a little bit while the Nets have been surging, and I can tell with Dunny's facial expression. You can't see it, Jake, but I can tell right now he doesn't want to talk about this, so that's why I'm going to make him talk about it. But Dunny, like, are the Brooklyn Nets like a real threat now, or is this just a hot streak that is fine? They're going to, have their own internal problems like they have the past few years, and it's going to go away? Or is the Brooklyn Nets, have they figured it out?
Yeah, I think they've definitely figured it out. A threat in the Eastern Conference, yes. I can't actually believe that they're a threat to the actual Celtics team until I see them put a beat down on them, just because we handled them earlier this season, and I know, that obviously wasn't when they're on their heater, like game winning streak like they're on right now, and that was kind of while Jacques Vaughn was still figuring things out with this group. But also last year in the playoffs, I don't think, it wouldn't be a clean sweep this time around. I'm not saying that. But there is certain teams that the Celtics and the Jays in particular are able to match up with. We saw them, you can't stop Kevin Durant, but you can certainly slow him down and tire him out. I think the Celtics are probably the best team in the NBA at doing that. They have a lot of experience with it. And then for whatever reason, the last 4 or 5 times, other than that game 1 explosion in the playoffs, Kyrie just hasn't really shown up to play the Boston Celtics. And some of those times he literally hasn't shown up because for whatever reason. But Kyrie's been good. I can't really knock him for that. He's been playing. He's been, keeping the off-court stuff to a minimum. And like you mentioned,
really, like, the only story. The only thing that's changed is Kyrie just hasn't talked. He has just said nothing.
And Ben's playing basketball. And
and
that's really it.
Ben looks like he's enjoying basketball.
What they needed. He's playing defense. He's moving the ball on a team that just needs ball movers and defenders and shooters. He's not the shooter, so he can do the other two.
I mean, we said this too, right? Before the season started. If Ben checks into this team and actually wants to play basketball, this is the perfect spot for him. To have guys like Kyrie and KD where you could just give it to them. They will run the offense. It does not matter. They will create their own shots. They will iso ball. They will pull up from mid-range. They will drive. All you got to do, just make your flashy passes and play defense. And he's done that. I don't remember last time Ben Simmons has had really a double-digit point game. But he's playing great basketball, doing the exact role they need him to do. It's so much less pressure on him than he was at Philly. And I think it's actually helping him become a better overall player, which is crazy that those words are coming out of my mouth. Because like I said, at the start of this year, I thought this was going to be another disaster.
But here's the thing, too. I want to know who you think deserves more credit for this. Is it Kevin Durant or is it Jacques Vaughn? Because clearly there were issues with Steve and the coaching, but was it the issues with the actual basketball coaching, which I will say Jacques Vaughn, much better basketball coach than Steve Nash. I'm not arguing that at all. I think the results are there, and I think just
absolutely
years of history Jacques Vaughn has in this league shows enough of it, whatever. Anyways, but I feel like Kevin Durant has taken another level, and actually this feels like Kevin Durant's team and his vision of what his leadership style is for a basketball team. And it's really he's laissez-faire, will let the guys, do what they need to do. Like he was with Kyrie, he was, with that whole situation, whether you would agree with it or not, Durant was he's a grown man, he can speak for himself. I'm here to hoop with him, and that's he's really kept them focused. And I wonder how much of that, without whatever clash was obviously going on with Nash, Durant, front office, all that other stuff, with all that gone, how much these guys are able to just take in Kevin Durant's David. And maybe it's not even a vocal thing. Maybe it's just seeing him without the distractions, just go to work every day, which I think we've heard a lot of people from past teams, past superstars, just talk about how much they've learned just from their habits. So I feel like Durant does deserve a large chunk of credit, but I do think Vaughn probably gets the most credit here.
Yeah, I think you're always going to give the coach the most credit. But what I will say, and you touched on at the very end, Jake, with Kevin Durant, is he's just there to ball. And I think he showed that with this team even when they were struggling. He's playing every night. He's going out there. He's putting in the work. And it's almost contagious, right? When you see a player of that type of level, that type of superstar, what's going on with the distractions in the background or anything off the court, all the issues, and it does not matter when he steps on the court. He's just there to ball. It does not matter what game, what opponent they're playing. Kevin Durant has been fully checked in for basically every single game this season. I think it's contagious. And also, too, I think some of the stuff he said and how he's kind of almost had his teammates back of where as long as they're, producing on the court, helping me, he's not really going to worry about anything else. It's looked like it's been a positive, factor for the Brooklyn Nets. But also, too, I think that has to go hand in hand with the coach to allow all of that, right? Where you got a bunch of kind of divas, a bunch of different personalities on this team. And in order to make it work, you just have to have simplicity, right? You just has to go, it's just basketball at the end of the day. When they're on the court, they're just playing basketball. And guess what? You have some really damn talented players on this team. So if you can just get all these guys to when they show up, basically they're showing up to work and they're just there to work. They're just there to play ball. It looks like it's been working. And we have seen that because during this win streak, we haven't heard much from Kyrie. We haven't heard really anything about Ben Simmons. And it's Kevin Durant has been the leader. And I think the rest of the team has basically realized that he is the leader of this team. And I think it's worked out perfectly where they're like, it's just basketball now, despite everything that's happened.
With Jacque Vaughn, too, I feel like at the beginning of the year, we were like the interior for the Brooklyn Nets defensively and offensively, they just don't have enough of a presence, this and that. And they're not a highly motivated team, and highly motivated teams don't play defense. They were a bottom 3 defense with Steve Nash. As far as defensive rating goes, they're top 10 right now. They're the 10 spot in defensive rating across the entire league. So, not only did, I think everything you said was correct, Steve. They kind of turned to KD and they were like, all right, let's let this guy who's done it at such a high level for so long lead by example. Kyrie's, not doing his normal Kyrie stuff. He's just out there playing like Kyrie Irving, Ben contributing, and then it's just so much easier for the younger guys to follow suit. The shooters who were injured for them at the beginning of the season, like Patty Mills, are back and on the court. Nick Claxton stepping up in a big way. And
I was just going to say his name.
He's been
unbelievable for him. I think Nick Claxton is kind of the unsung hero of this team because the biggest issue the Nets had the past couple of years, they didn't have that interior defender. And Nick Claxton has been sensational to the point where I don't think he's going to win it or even maybe be in the top, 3. But Claxton has been one of the best defenders in the NBA this year. So I think that's a great name to drop right there, Dunny, is Nick Claxton has really kind of helped this team defensively. Also, too, it's nice to have TJ Warren playing basketball again. This was one of those bubble heroes, right? One of those bubble monsters that unfortunately kind of disappeared because he dealt with injury after injury after injury. But now to just have that too, and where he doesn't have any pressure at all, just coming off the bench, get what you need to get. He's starting to play around 25, 30 minutes a night. It's helping. And like I said, good basketball and just having that mindset, which, granted, everyone wants to say a bunch of different stuff about KD. One thing you can never question about KD is his love for the game and his work ethic. And it seems like it's spreading across this entire team.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, you posed the question at the beginning, Steve. Am I worried? No, because I think I would like to think the Celtics can handle this team if we meet in the playoffs again. But I mean, the rest of the league should be on notice. I mean, they're a legitimate threat. They're going to be in the playoffs. I'm sure they'll make some noise if they can keep this up. Yeah. Obviously, we know I don't think coaching's an issue anymore. I think they figured that out. But I do think having a guy like Kyrie and Ben Simmons on your team. Unfortunately, the last few seasons, those guys have been ticking time bombs for, something to happen where they have to remove themselves from the sport. But it's been good right now. And, all we can say is to kind of give them high praise because they're playing like the best team in the league right now.
Yeah. I mean, and it's shown. And now a half game back. And you shouldn't be worried, Dunny, because they don't have Josh Giddey or Trey Mann on this team. You don't need to be worried.
That was disgusting, bro. The Thunder put up 150 points on the Celtics
with no shade.
I know. Oh, I looked at that box score. It's one of those where I wasn't watching. I looked at the box score, Donnie. I was like, "Oh, it must be reversed." There must have been an error on the ESPN app where they reversed the score.
No. Dude, at one point in the beginning of the fourth quarter, the Thunder were shooting nearly 70% from the field. Like they just, and it was poor defense by the Celtics for sure, but it was also just the most insane shot making I've ever seen.
I think they were 20 for 40 from three. You're not going to beat a team that goes 20 for 40 from three. I don't care how good that team is. It's the NBA. They're all professionals. You're not beating that team if they're going 20 made threes on 50% clip. There's no chance.
It was just one of those games I had to immediately chalk up as just one of those like random L's that are going to happen throughout the season, and you just have to take it on the chin.
I didn't want to bring it up, but I kind of had to. I'm sorry.
No.
We got
to
bring it up because it has brought the Celtics back down to the crowd with the East, which is what I think we want to talk about, because there's 3 teams for 5 spots right now, or 5 teams within 3 games of each other. I mean,
dude, the top of the East is a gauntlet.
The Sixers sneaky only being 3 games out. Pacers 5 games out.
I don't like the Cavs the most out of this group. I really don't.
I would still go Celtics. If you're giving me these 5 teams and say pick one that could come out of the East, and we're going with Celtics here, Nets, Bucks, Cavs, Sixers, I'm still going Celtics. But I don't think it's kind of the same feeling we had, last we talked, right? 3 weeks ago, where it was Celtics here, middle part of the East, bottom part of the East.
Yeah.
These other teams have figured it out.
Yeah, I think with the C's right now, and I don't know this for sure, but it's just something that I've kind of taken from watching the games. It seems like they're still trying to gel with Robert Williams coming back, because I think they were actually able to succeed so much at the beginning of the season because they didn't have their defensive anchor, and they knew their defense was probably going to be mediocre anyway. So they were like, let's be the best goddamn offense in the entire league to start this season. And they were just hitting threes at a very unrealistic clip. I mean, they're averaging over like 125 points for like a 10-game straight. They were just putting up unrealistic numbers, I think. And now their defensive anchor's back, and he's on minutes restrictions some games, sitting some games to kind of rehab that knee and just make sure everything's okay, and he's eased back. I think that's the reason for the 5 for 5 over the last 10, 5 wins, 5 losses. They like you said, Steve, they've just come down to earth a little bit, and I think that's the biggest reason why. Obviously, there might be some other stuff going on, but I think that's where I'm at with the C's right now. Just trying to mesh with Robert Williams coming back and put the best lineups out there. And at the end of the day, we're still talking about a 34-year-old head coach, so I'm sure it's not the easiest for him right now either.
There's some growing pains. It's natural, right?
Yeah. It's insane.
I will say this feels as good as the Celtics have been playing, obviously made the finals last year and everything. This feels more like the East I was expecting than the Celtics just like winning 68 games against everybody. And that's no knock on the Celtics. It just feels like, Brooklyn and Philly figuring things out. And Philly really just getting healthy. I mean, Maxey coming back, Harden coming back, like those guys. And Embiid's been awesome. He's just been awesome all year long.
Embiid and Giannis both have just been willing their teams. I mean, we talked about our biggest concerns with the Bucks is, the health of Middleton, if Drew is going to still be the same type of player. And I think both of those concerns have kind of proven to be true so far, right? Middleton can't stay on the court right now. Drew hasn't really been the same, but it does not matter because Giannis is putting up these jaw-dropping stat lines. And I think we talked about it. I think it was a couple nights ago, we had 55, 10, and 7. Like, it's just Giannis is willing his team. Then you've got Embiid, who I feel like every night I check a Sixers score, Embiid's got 40-plus points. They're just willing their teams to, like, the top part of the East right now. And that's terrifying because they're 2 of the best players in the world with, other parts on their team not really at their full potential. The Sixers haven't been with Maxey for a while. He finally came back. the Bucks really haven't been at full strength all year long, and outside of really Bobby Portis, everyone hasn't really been as good as expected outside of Giannis. So
Yeah.
it is kind of crazy right now that they are in this position where they're in the top 5 in the East right now, where their team isn't maybe playing at their full potential, but these superstars, and they're across the entire league, not just the Eastern Conference, the Western Conference too, where have just been so good this year. They're just overcoming all types of adversity from their teams.
Yeah, man. I mean, just the level of play this year, I don't really remember anything like this in recent years, or frankly ever. I just saw this Hoop Central just put out this graphic like 40 minutes or so ago, and it says most individual 40-point games through January 3rd of a season in NBA history. The third highest 40-point games through this date in NBA history, 2018, there was 58 40-point games. 1961, there was 65 40-point games. And this year, there's been 88 40-point individual games. And we're only halfway through the season. I mean, yeah.
That's
and
insane.
what we've seen, like 10 of them in the last week. Like
it feels like one every night. No, it feels like multiple every night. And I think there have been multiple the past few nights where it's just.
I mean, we didn't even get to talk about it because we spent so long on the huge performances. But like that, Klay Thompson had 54 the same night that Mitchell had 71.
Nobody blinked an eye. No one blinked an eye at that.
10 threes. Like
you had. Who was it? Tyler Hero had a 40-point night where he had 10 plus threes. It's just crazy. I was telling you guys this before because I think he deserves to at least have his name mentioned. Pascal had 52 one night. Yeah. I mean, in the game where Mitchell scored 71, DeMar had 44. It's happening all over the league now where there's just so many superstars that are just, once they get in the zone, they're taking the game over, and there's nothing opposing teams can do to scheme against it. It's wild. I mean, I hate being the guy that's like, oh, the players now are better than the players back then. And I don't like having that argument when people try to argue different eras, because it's a different era, right? Everything changes, the technology, the training, etc. But
there was no things in the locker room, bro.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is just the amount of quote-unquote superstars we have in the league right now, even just going back the past 10 years, I can't remember it being this deep. Not even close.
How deep the individual teams are too, man. Like there's some bench guys. I mean, you just mentioned Tyler Hero is technically a
he starts now, right?
Yeah, he starts now. I always forget that. But it is true. Like there's guys on the bench that play like 10 minutes a game who are also capable of having these type of games if they're given the opportunity. Obviously, I don't think there's bench players in the league that can put up 70, but I don't know why I'm blanking on the guy's name on the Pelicans, the dude who steals the ball all the time.
Oh, Alvarado. Jose
Alvarado.
He had a 39-point game to start the season. Like
Trey Murphy too. When he has to get thrown into the starting lineup, he just scores 30. It's what's going on?
Yeah, man. It's just crazy, the talent. I mean, I think that in my eyes, that argument's dead. Like there's the league is so talented now. And if people want to argue individuals, like I obviously still believe guys like Jordan, Kobe, Shaq, they could still play in this era. But as far as era to era and comparing talent, it's a landslide. It's not even close how talented the league is right now compared to it's ever been.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Like I said, it's just wild that, and I got to talk about him too, or Meerkat's going to yell at me at work tomorrow. But Nikola Jokic is playing better this season than he has his past 2 seasons where he won the MVP. He's on potential to have, I think, the highest efficiency rating in NBA history, which is ridiculous. He's been even better than he was the past 2 seasons. He's putting up these jaw-dropping stat lines where I think he had a 47 and 20 or a 40 and a 27 rebound game. He's getting, it feels like, a triple-double almost every night. I know, Dunny, I'm not trying to pick on the Celtics, but the game Jokic played when the Nuggets faced the Celtics was about as perfect of a basketball game as you could have ever watched. I mean, he did everything right that game. And Jokic is, I think, third or fourth right now in the MVP conversation because the reasoning is, he just can't get a third. But he's playing like a 3-time type MVP player. But the reason he just can't get a third. Jokic just, we don't want him to have 3 straight. But you can't take away with what he's been doing. And it's like, well, does it equate to wins? Well, yeah, the Nuggets, I believe, are still at the top of the Western Conference right now.
Yeah,
and they've been there because of Nikola Jokic. It's just crazy what these superstars are doing to just will their teams to not just these gaudy stat lines that we are obsessing over, but wins too. That's the part where it's not only that they're putting up the numbers, they're winning games.
Yeah, I mean, he's a half assist away from averaging a triple-double as a center. He's third in the league in assists per game, averaging 25, nearly 11 rebounds, and 9.5 assists. Like, it's insane. Yeah, shout out Meerkat, shout out the Nuggets. I think they'll quietly probably sit at that 1 seed in the West for a while. I mean, until we see the Pelicans get healthy again. Obviously, I think Memphis will be hanging around that 2 spot as well, and maybe take the 1 spot at some point. But I mean, we talked about it with the Nuggets. It was only a matter of time. Like, Jamal needed to come back. We needed to see how Aaron Gordon would work out this season.
He's been great this year.
He's been so good. He's been so much more beneficial for the team than Michael Porter Jr. has been, and I think everyone thought it might be the opposite. But I think Gordon's. I can't say the second best player on the team, but like maybe the second most important behind Jokic, just because of how like he just plays like really. I mean, talk about efficiency and solid minutes. Like, that's Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, he's been incredible. And MPJ has had his moments. Jamal Murray has had his moments. And yes, they're both coming off injuries, just tedious injuries. So I get it. They're going to be a little inconsistent. But Aaron Gordon was someone where last year I was like, it just doesn't feel like he fits on this team. I thought he was a disappointment. I didn't really work with the chemistry. And you're right, Donnie. Even though he may not be the second most talented player on the team, he is the second most important. He's been unbelievable this year, to where there's a game if Michael Porter has to sit out, or maybe Murray sits out, because sometimes Murray will sit out on back-to-backs, or they'll rest him a little bit. Aaron Gordon steps up into a guy who can score 25 and get like 12 rebounds. And to have that with a type of MVP like Nikola Jokic is, it's scary. The Nuggets are a legitimate threat this year.
Yeah, just the size both those dudes possess on the interior, like that's just a lot to deal with. If any of the other guys on the wing can get going, I think that's what the Celtics kind of ran into. Jokic just asserted his dominance, and then if anyone else has like a semi good game, it's kind of over.
Yeah.
We have talked about pretty much all the top dogs in both conferences here. You guys want to end with a little current championship picture, but maybe talk about some of these fringe teams and what we think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the doc, we'll start with the East. In the doc here, we have the Heat, Bulls, and Raptors. Are these teams officially toast? I think you could throw the Hawks into this group too, but we kind of already touched on them with the Nate McMillan stuff. But Heat, Bulls, Raptors, are they toast? What do we think?
Jake, you want to start?
Yeah, I think so. I picked these 3 teams just because the Raptors are kind of not as much, but I feel like everybody still expected them to contend or be able to be one of those teams up top, and they just haven't been so far this year. They're one of the worst they've been shooting just horribly. The Bulls obviously awful. It's terrible to watch. The Bulls obviously, they basically went all in last year with the Vucevic trade, and it turned into a first round exit, and now who knows what's going to happen there. And then Miami is sitting there at 20-18. They're only in the 7th spot. So it's not as like they're a little bit in a better spot, but it just, Jimmy's barely been healthy this year, and is an injured Jimmy, a Kyle Lowry who's lost a step, and Bam and Hero going to be enough to contend? I never want to doubt the Heat, but it just feels like that's not going to be enough to get it done. And maybe they're the Trae Young landing spot. That was high on the betting odds when the Trae Young stuff is first going out, as Miami is the number one team there. But yeah, I'm trying to look at who the teams are that are really going to fall out of this race. I feel like the Knicks are going to hang around and just be a gritty, whatever. Maybe that's where the Heat end up too, but I don't know. If I was Miami, I think I'd just be ready to call it and try to retool on this year.
Yeah, I could see that. I also, with Miami, I'm never going to doubt a Miami Heat team, especially when it comes to playoff time. It just feels like their defense takes it up another notch. And I'm not going to get too worried about the Heat because, like you said, they still got a winning record. They're still technically in the playoff picture right now. They're in the play-in, but it's still the playoff picture, and that's with Jimmy, who's been banged up. And the biggest thing for the Heat, I know a couple guys have lost a step, but Tyler Hero has really stepped up since he's become a starter, and it's helped them a lot. Bam has definitely had his moments, and I wish Bam would really become a little more consistent. He has had some games where he'll just dominate. So I'm not too worried about the Heat. And then the Raptors, you were talking about their shooting is just awful. They're finally at full health again when they have that starting five. Like I said, I think the starting five of Van Vliet, Gary Trent, Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, and Pascal Siakam can really play with anyone. That may not be every team, but they can at least be in the game against most other starting fives. I think that shooting will turn around. The Bulls, I'd be hitting the panic button. I'd be trying to trade Levine because it's just – they don't have the defense. The Bulls can't defend anyone. Vucevic went from a player where they traded a lot for to he's become a liability because he can't defend anything inside. And basically kind of last year was kind of overshadowed or, all the problems were covered up by DeMar just going nuclear for a few months. And DeMar's kind of came back down to just DeMar DeRozan again, where he's still a great player. He still can be a walking bucket, but he's not having, averaging a 35 points a game per month like he was doing for a couple stretches last year. So I think the Bulls are the ones that really have the biggest problems, are the ones I think should be waving, I guess, the white flag or looking to trade pieces, to where the Raptors and the Heat, Raptors score still pretty young. I don't really know what you would do in that situation. I like the way Pascal has turned into, I think, a superstar. Scotty, even though he hasn't taken the jump we expected, still been a solid player. Van Vliet and Trent, defensive liabilities, but Anunoby kind of makes up for that a little bit. And I think the shooting will improve. And then, like I said, Miami, I'm never going to doubt a Miami Heat team. You never win when you doubt the Heat team because they prove you wrong every year with this, same type of guys on the roster where they just step up when it matters most. And I think a lot of the, Heat struggles, even though it's not really struggles because they're still in a decent spot, have been because their best player, Jimmy Butler, has been dealing with injuries all year long.
Yeah. I think out of those three, I'm the least worried about the Heat as well. I also think that they're the team out of the three that wouldn't hesitate to make a trade first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're set up to do so. I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle Lowry was gone at the deadline. I don't know how much you get back in return at this point, but maybe you package him with a Duncan Robinson. He's a guy who, for the last couple of years, teams have been interested in. I mean, any team wants to add a sharpshooter, so I wouldn't be surprised if guys like that are dealt at the deadline. I mean, they could. There's a lot of things that the Heat could improve, and I don't think they're a franchise that's afraid to do it. And like you said, Steve, I mean, you kind of just trust a team like this that has veteran play with Jimmy Butler, that has Eric Spoelstra as a coach.
Right.
They're the 7th seed right now. So one, they're not nearly as in bad shape as the Bulls and Raptors. And two, I just trust this group the most out of the three. And just to order it, if we're talking least worried to most, I'd go Heat, Raptors, Bulls, because I'm in agreement with you, man. I think everyone, maybe 2 weeks after the Vucevic trade, when they kind of put this big three together in Chicago last year, I think everyone except Chicago Bulls organization and Chicago Bulls fans maybe could see that this, I mean, who actually thought that big three was going to compete in the East? I mean, it just wasn't good enough from the start. 2 out of 3 of the pieces are kind of declining in DeMar and Vucevic. Obviously, DeMar is still playing at a very high level, but he's getting up there in age. He has limitations to his game already. If you're comparing him to other superstars, he just does not have a 3-ball, and it's been apparent his whole
shoot
career.
A 3-ball. He doesn't even shoot it anymore.
Right.
Like he plays inside the arc.
Mm-hmm. And then you have Vooch, who just really can't play defense, and Levine, who, he's had his drama with the Bulls organization, and he's kind of an injury-prone player already, and that we haven't seen Lonzo Ball in over a year. So, I mean, Chicago, I think you got to worry about them the most. Again, they should be making a move at the deadline. I don't know if they will. But, yeah, I think it's safe to say the Bulls are toast, if that was the question, and then Heat, not entirely worried about, but probably should make a move. And Raptors, I'm going to wait and see with the Raptors because, like you said, they're healthy now. I do believe in a few, most of the guys' talent on this squad. But I also think they're a team that could benefit from a trade. So we'll see. I wouldn't mind seeing them move Van Fleet. I think if you're going to keep one of your core guys, it's got to be Pascal at this point.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think a few years ago that might have been flipped, and people might have thought that Van Fleet's the best player on this team. That's not even close to the case anymore. You could argue that Scotty's going to be the second player on this team in a year or two. So, not really worried about the Raps, but also maybe interested in looking into a trade at the deadline.
I want to bring up one more team for you guys. Just want to get your opinion because right now they're the 6th seed in the East. It's the Indiana Pacers. They're a young team. This is a team we talked about that when the trades start opening up, that they are going to be the team that's going to be selling off pieces, right? Because they have a young core. They're going to try to accumulate picks. But right now, you're the 6th spot in the East. You're playing pretty good. Your young core, quote unquote, has been playing great. And not only that, a couple of the guys that are, got big targets in the trade market, Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, have been playing very well as well. What do the Pacers do here? Do they stay put? Do they still try to trade off pieces? Or do they look to almost turn into buyers a little bit where maybe not, trying to get someone just for this season, but maybe see if they can get something that maybe bring another star, maybe a veteran to help out these young guards they have with Halliburton, with Nembhard, with Mathurin?
Well, dude, we were talking about earlier. Imagine if the Phoenix Suns never matched that offer for DeAndre Ayton, and we had this Pacers team with DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking probably at a 3-4 seed instead of the 6 seed right now, if that was the case. Dude, and I know I've joked a few times because Aaron Nesmith was horrible on his tenure with the Celtics, which was disappointing because I think he's an extremely good athlete. He was a great shooter in college. It just the minutes didn't really work out, and when he did get time, he just played poorly. But and we joked, we were like, why is this guy starting over Mathurin in some games? Which I don't think that should ever be the case. But dude, he's been playing well, and he's like an afterthought on this Pacers team. So you look up and down the roster with Halliburton, Mathurin, Buddy Hield, Miles Turner. Like, I think at this point you might have to stay put right now. And I agree with you. I think it's either stay put or they become a buyer. I don't really think you try to. I don't think they have to fire sale. Is basically what I'm saying.
And I don't think they should, because even though I don't think any of us expect them to make a lot of noise in the Eastern playoffs, to at least get the experience for these young guards, to have your fan base have something to root for the first time in a while. And it's been great because you talked about Nesmith, who's been playing well. Another guy who I thought was going to be great coming out of college, it just was lost, never really found his place in Phoenix. Jalen Smith has been playing well for this Pacers team too. So they got a lot of young players that maybe you keep around. And I don't know. I still think they could afford to trade Buddy because they do have a lot of guard depth, especially when obviously Mathurin's still coming off the bench. Nembhard's in the starting lineup now, but you also got Chris Duarte, who I think is getting healthy again, who should have a role. I don't know what they do though, because if you're the Pacers, the plan was right. We're gonna trade off these pieces and we're gonna rebuild with this young core we have. And now Halliburton's clearly taken the step. Ben Mathurin looks like the best rookie in the NBA right now, and that's not me being biased. That's just me, just based on what I've been watching.
Yeah, no, he does.
I don't know. It's a weird spot to be in because I don't think they compete with any of the top 5 seeds in the East. but you can make the argument they're definitely the sixth best team. Not just record-wise.
And it's funny because those other three teams we were talking about, I feel like they would kill to be in Indiana's position right now.
Yeah.
Or especially the Bulls and Raptors. So, like, yeah, I think maybe make a small move at the deadline. But if I'm Indiana, I think you just got to stay in the Flames and ride this out. Any thoughts on the Pacers there, Jake?
I would ride it out. I'm with you guys. I love the young core. And I wouldn't do anything crazy yet. I think that I am with you, though. I think there should be a Hield deal still to be made because even if they're going to be playoff contenders, like they're not going to re-sign Buddy Hield. Go get an asset for him that can help you with this young core in the future.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, Indiana basketball.
I love it. They've been so much fun to watch this year. I mean, it's been a true pleasure to watch Halliburton and Mathurin storming onto we're going to look back on this draft. A lot of people are going to look back on this draft at least and be like, how did he fall to where he fell to? It really doesn't make a lot of sense.
If only there was, some small kid in Buffalo that was just preaching that Ben Mathurin needs to go early. That he's the most talented player in college. If only those NBA GMs listened.
Crazy, man. All right, let's finish here. We can kind of do the same thing with the West here. Just some of these fringe teams. Well, it's crazy we're calling them fringe, right? But it's teams coming into the league we probably thought were going to be heavy hitters and aren't really that right now. Clippers, Lakers, Warriors, Suns. Who do we trust most in that group? And I guess who are we most worried about out of those teams?
Most worried has to be the Suns, right? I think we're all in agreement there. The Booker injury, even without the Booker injury, it'd probably still be the Suns. But the Booker injury, clearly the Suns. And I don't even think we need to discuss that. We talked about the Suns earlier. The one I'm least worried about, and it's because we've seen glimpses of this team when they're at full health, is the Los Angeles Clippers. When the Clippers are finally starting to get healthy, and right now they're in a position where they can afford to have certain guys sit out, certain guys, only play a few games each week because they have so much depth and so much talent through that roster. The Clippers could be scary if everything works out and all this, all this rest, load management, whatever you want to call it, works out, because they would be a terrifying first-round matchup for any of the top Western seeds. The other teams all have their issues. The Warriors, they're going to need a top 4 seed because they don't know how to win a single road game and also don't know how to play a lick of defense. And the Lakers are only going to go as far as LeBron and AD take them. And AD, just as much as we love AD, he just can't stay healthy for long periods of time. So I would go Clippers, least worried, and then probably Warriors, Lakers in the middle, Suns way at the bottom. But right now, I think the Clippers are a terrifying first-round matchup for any Western Conference team.
You don't know what you're facing. You got no idea. They can be any combination of Clippers every night. It's truly the most unpredictable team in the league.
And that's the thing, Jake. It's like, that's the thing. They have so many guys. So imagine if everything just kind of works out in the Clippers' favor, right? Where they're able to rest these guys, play certain guys, certain games, certain not, and get into the playoffs. And then they have just a healthy roster where they're able to have a starting 5 where they can play Kawhi and PG both 35, 40 minutes in a playoff game. Zubac has really looked good this year. John Wall's been great off the bench. Marcus Morris is one of those guys where he just does what you need him to do. He's never going to be a guy you want to run your offense through, but he's someone who just does what you need him to do, whatever it is. Powell has shown flashes of just being a bucket coming off the bench. I mean, this Clippers team.
Big Z, Zubac.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When they're healthy, it's terrifying, man. It's terrifying. So I think the Clippers, to be what position they are right now, I believe they're the 6th seed, 21-18. The way that they've kind of dealt with all these injuries to not just Kawhi, Not just Kawhi, who we knew Kawhi was coming back from injury. Not just John Wall, who we knew his minutes was going to get limited. That he's not going to play every night. But all these other guys, like Paul George has sat out games. Norman Powell got hurt. Marcus Morris has sat out games. Zubac was hurt for a little bit of time. And they're still got a winning record. They're still winning games. I mean,
you know what's crazy?
Terrifying.
We're talking about the Clippers right now. We started this podcast talking about the legendary performances.
Mm-hmm.
People forget a month ago, Zubac had a 31.29 rebound game month ago. And it's just washed from all of our memories because of how good everyone else has been. Like,
crazy.
People, I'm sure that there is probably people who watch the NBA weekly who don't know who Ivica Zubac is, and he has a 31-29 game this year.
Well, and then you had Paul George going nuts, channeling his inner Tracy McGrady in the comeback with, I forget, they were down 14 with 3 minutes to go, I believe, against the Pistons, and Paul George just willed them back to win that game. I mean, there's just been so many, you talk about that, there's so many individual performances this year that we just forget about after the night of because there's just been that many. But you're right. Zubac, I know we're not doing this section this week, but if we were going to give flowers, Zubac has to be someone to give flowers to because he has been that, consistent big man that the Clippers have needed. And honestly, I think he's taken a big step this year.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of a piece on that squad that is just needed. It's just needed for them to win. He's, you talk about all the dudes who have been injured on the Clippers, and he's kind of the last 3 years, it seems like, has been that one constant where he's just always there doing his job. Has never really had the flashy games until this year, but he's a gamer. The Clippers, I tend to agree. I'm probably the least worried about the Clippers, but I think the Warriors are a close second.
Agreed.
Just because they're somehow on a 5-game win streak without Steph right now, which makes absolutely no sense to me. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. No, but it is wild to see that, man. The fact that they're even able to be on a 5-game win streak right now when their road record is 3-16 on the year. It's crazy. So, and it's obviously the coaching with the Warriors and just the longevity and the chemistry of that group is a reason to not be worried. But yeah, the rest of these teams, man, Lakers, Suns, I don't know what to think about either of those groups. Obviously, it just sucks that the Lakers had such a incredibly poor start to the season, because now it seems like they just can't even afford for Anthony Davis to get hurt with the way they set themselves up to start the year. They put themselves in such a hole when Davis was relatively healthy, and then they went on that week and a half tear where they looked like one of the best teams in the NBA. But if Davis is out, man, this group just they can't click. I mean, LeBron can't do everything on his own at 38 years old.
And he shouldn't have to. He shouldn't have to. But the way they've built this team is where he basically has to. And I know we've talked about him a bunch. Westbrook has played very good lately.
Yep.
But you can't have Anthony Davis is the core of this team. And if he can't stay healthy for long periods of time, Lakers just aren't going to be a legitimate threat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, Dunny, too, you were saying how the Warriors had a 5-game win streak without Curry. That's without Wiggins, too. It's without their arguably 2 best players, right? We thought they were the 2 best in the playoffs last year coming into this year because we thought Clay would regress a little bit, Draymond go down. We're like, these are their 2 best players. Without them, they've won 5 straight. Crazy.
Yeah, it's a testament to Poole just doing his thing as a starter, which is so he's one of the. I guess it kind of makes sense for the type of player he is, but he is just so much better when he starts games.
Absolutely,
it's crazy.
He's similar to Tyler Hero in my mind, where he can come off spurts off the bench, but when we saw Hero was coming off the bench with the Heat last year, when after Hero kind of took that step. If he started the night 0 for 3 from the field, you're like, all right, Hero's kind of checked out this night. He's not going to make an impact. And that's kind of like how Poole was this year. If Poole starts off 4 for 4, maybe making some nice assists too, it's like Poole's going to have 25 off the bench tonight. But if he starts
Yeah.
kind of 0 for 2, 0 for 3, it's going to be a lost night where people are hating on Poole because he went 3 of 15 from the field and had like 5 turnovers. But you're right, Dunny. Since he's starting, he's almost kind of forced to be the guy for the Warriors, and it's helped him so much as a starter. He's been great.
Yeah. Yeah, him and Clay have definitely been carrying the slack, which I think Clay deserves some credit too with how cold he was to start the season.
Dunny's
But yeah.
biting his tongue as he says that. You guys can't see it, but he is.
Yeah, that I don't know. I put them second confident for a reason. I'll put the Clippers above them, but we'll see how the Warriors fare. We'll see how they do with these road games moving forward. Jake, any thoughts on any of these fringe Western Conference teams who really none of them should be fringe, but they are?
No, I'm in the same order as you guys, especially after I just got this update at the end of the first quarter, and it's 15-14 Cavs. So I'm keeping the Suns last. Not gonna acknowledge the 15 from the Cavs, but the 14 from the Suns, they're last.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, is that going to be a show, gentlemen? First happy hour hoops back in the new year.
I'm loving it. Just one more thing. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And then we're done with the Western Conference. Mavs 8-1 since Christian Wood has been a full-time starter. They announced it 8-1. Mavs, you know what to do now. The Bulls are struggling. Go get Zach LaVine, and we're good to go. That's it. That's all you got to do. It's simple. It's easy. And he better not come off the bench, Mavs. You're not going to do this thing where, you're going to start him off the bench for the first couple months. No, we want Reggie Bullock out of the lineup. Go get Zach LaVine, and we're good to go. We're good to go. You got Luka, you got LaVine, you got Hardaway, you got Wood. Everything's good. Everything's good, man. That's all you got to do.
What Steve's neglecting to mention about their 8-1 stretch is they played the Spurs once and the Rockets 3 times. We don't need to.
We don't need to talk about that though.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about that at all.
Well, Mark Cuban, you heard Steve go out and get Zach LaVine. Maybe we'll see that for the Mavs at the deadline.
Woo!
But
can we talk about how perfect of a landing spot that'd be for him though?
Yeah, that would.
Oh, that's everything that
That's everything Dallas needs.
He needs to be a number 2 to a legit number 1. And again, no disrespect to DeMar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yes, that the two things that DeMar lacks is an outside shot, and he's just not as good a playmaker as some of the other stars in the league. And that's, he's one of the best scorers in the league. He's a top 3 mid-range shooter in the league. He's fantastic at getting to the rim. These are not shots at DeMar, but again, it goes back to me kind of hating on the Chicago Bulls putting that big 3 together in the first place. Like it kind of was aware. We were all aware that it wasn't going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think if LaVine somehow ends up on the Mavs, it's going to be unbelievable.
So Bulls keep losing Bulls.
That would help those
absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah. Keep losing Bulls, trade everybody, get Wemby in there somehow. They don't even have their picks, but
Wemby. Well, the Wemby sweepstakes. I mean, what are we looking at right now? Right now, it's the Pistons.
That's why I'm looking at the Hawks. That's why I'm looking at Trae Young. Because if you want to do it, you got to just pull the trigger. They could if they traded Trae and John Collins and just gave it to DeJounte and whatever else they get from all those picks, they could be within the bottom 4, bottom 5. Spurs did it last year.
It's going to be the Rockets, and next year they're going to have Sengun, Wemby, Jabari Smith, Kevin Porter Jr., and Jalen Green.
I just don't want it to be Charlotte. That's all I.
No, nobody wants it to be Charlotte. I think we all want LaMelo just to find a different spot. No one wants LaMelo still in Charlotte. Just I don't know. I'm done with Charlotte.
Wembanyama would be the most hilarious pairing, I think, possible. It would just be so interesting.
All right, guys. Is that gonna do it from us here at Happy Hour Hoops?
I mean, we could keep rambling, but we should cut it.
Well, thank you all for listening. Follow us at Happy Hour Hoops 1 on all social. Follow Trainwreck Sports on all social. For Steve, Jake, and myself, Thank you for listening, watching, or however you're consuming this podcast. Jake will be back on camera next week, so you got to tune in for that.
Yeah.
See his new backdrop. And enjoy the NBA until we are back. See you later, everyone.